All right, what is going on? Welcome to this intense sales training video because today we are going to be doing a deep dive into the specific methodology on how I run my discoveries and how I can ensure maximum commitment. Until this point, I have never actually reverse engineered what I do on a sales call. Okay, everyone knows, if anyone's been part of my coaching or just on my teams or anything like that, I do everything totally scriptless, and it is more of a sensory thing where I'm like, cool, I know what I'm looking for. I'm having a problem focused conversation and I'm looking for ownership and commitment. But for the very first time, I have actually reverse engineered and mapped out basically a framework of the things of what I am going to focus on when I go through a discovery to ensure the maximum buy-in. So without further ado, I'm going to be sharing this. This will make you a fuck ton of money. Let's dive in.
Here comes the money.
All right. Third time is the charm. The first time my iPad wasn't recording. Second time my PC wasn't recording. So let's fucking nail this training right now. So before we get into the exact framework, I want to just touch on a very quick point, which is the first phase, which I would call connection. What I mean with that is actually being aware of who you're fucking talking to, okay? Because most people don't understand this, and the reason for it is because most people are selfish and we only care more about ourselves. We actually care more about what the person thinks of us than what actual impact we could have on them. We're like, oh, I hope they don't think that I'm, bad at setting frame, or I hope that they don't think that I'm whatever, right? Bullshit, like little insecurities. You have such a need to be liked, okay? So we want to be pacing their kind of emotional state, right? We want to be anchoring to them because, again, at a very high level, people just kind of buy from you if they like you. So we want to make sure that we're matching them in some way, okay? So the first thing I'm paying attention to is their energy, right? Are they skeptical? Are they open? And sometimes they can be too open, which is actually a red flag because then they're just going to be the rambler, and we know we might need to kind of call them out a little bit or just cut them off, right? Now, one thing is like when someone's got ultra high energy, I'm actually going to be a notch below them. I want to try and like rein them down a little bit. When someone's got very low energy, I'm a notch above them to try and bring them up, okay? So this is the thing that I'm constantly paying attention to. Who am I talking to? What type of personality do they have? How can I make sure that they're going to resonate with me? And I'm paying a lot of attention to that. But are they skeptical? Are they open? Are they distracted? Because hey, if they're distracted, we're not going to have a present conversation, and I'm going to need to address that. Hey, is everything good? Are you all good for this call right now? Yeah, why? You seem just a little distracted. I just want to make sure that we're all good for this call. Oh, I was just on my phone. Okay, cool, no worries. Well, you take a few minutes to wrap that up. I'll be right here, and then we can dive in once you're done. Set the frame, okay? So that's the first thing, is we're paying attention to their energy. And then from that energy, we are calibrating. Okay, we are coming in, we want to be, warm and grounded, and it's got that calm certainty and all of these things, okay? And then we ask permission to jump in. Because this is what I would call the illusion of control. Hey, are you cool if we dive in? Makes it feel like they've moved into the sale or into the discovery compared to, hey, so let's dive in. Almost the same, but this is much, much better. We're getting them on the same side of the table as us. So, hey, I know we've got a lot to cover today. Are you good if we dive into things? Yeah, Scott, sounds great. Perfect. Well, here's how the call's going to go, right? It's the illusion of control. So that's the first thing, but now we're going to get into the actual tangible framework. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do, there are 3 types of prospects, okay? And yes, I know what you're thinking. Oh, Scott, there's probably way more than 3. I've done a lot of fucking sales calls. And what you will find with this framework I'm going to run you through, you've probably never heard anything like this before, because this is totally unique to me. Completely fucking unique to me, based off of countless mentors, based off of thousands of fucking sales reps, and just figuring out exactly what works. And like I said, this is about me basically going through my brain like at an ultra analytical level and thinking, what do I actually look for on these calls? Okay, so the first thing is identifying the type of prospect out of these 3. So the first one, this is the most common situation, the one that you will speak to the most. Burning building. Okay, most prospects are here. High urgency. Okay, this is like they're in pain, they're overwhelmed, they're stuck, they're losing money, time, energy, or all 3. And here, we are not selling the solution. Okay, we don't sell the solution. So let me cross that out. Don't sell the solution, okay? We are looking to just hold them in the smoke, right? You just keep them in the smoke. We hold their feet to the fire, as they say. Because the only thing that will that they're looking for is the transformation. We don't sell the solution, we sell the transformation. We break that cycle. We are selling the breaking of that cycle, finally, okay? So that's the only goal, right? Are they finally going to break this cycle? And it barely matters what we sell them. We just sell the transformation of their identity, okay? And we want to understand, like, why now, right? Why, or what has changed that's made this unsustainable for you now, right? We want to be focusing on here, and we'll go deep into the specifics of it, but this is the first type of person that you'll speak to, okay? Situation's bad and they're aware of it. Hey, I want to get out of my 9 to 5. Because I want to be clear, this doesn't mean they say, hey, my life is so terrible, I'm going to kill myself right now, right? It's like, they're like, hey, I hate my 9 to 5, and I'm looking for a different business that I could get into to get out of it. Okay, cool. Problem aware. They want to get out of the 9 to 5. How long have you worked a 9 to 5? When did you come to the realization that you no longer want to work that 9 to 5? What are the reasons that you're looking to leave the 9 to 5, right? We're just going deep into that, okay? Now, the second one is called, I'm going to call it something abrasive. I'm going to call it rationalizing little rat. Because most people are in this way, okay? Now, I want to be clear here. This is not their fault. Okay, often we think, oh, that person's kind of lying, or they're hiding things, or they're rationalizing, and we're blaming them. It's actually so many things. As humans, no one wants to admit their failures and their wrongdoings. But I guarantee there are so many people that are feeding this narrative. Their friends, their family, they're all saying, oh, you work really hard, like, oh, just take a break, like, oh, it's all going to come to you one day, and all of this shit, right? So if enough people feed into the narrative, this person will eventually believe that narrative. So it's not even their fault that they are stuck within a cycle of rationalizing, okay? But we've got to hold up the mirror and we've got to ask curious questions to bring awareness to the fact that that's actually a rationalization so that the urgency increases, okay? This person is aware of the urgency. We just need to make sure that there is no fear or hesitation that would stop them from doing it. This person is almost not aware of the urgency. They don't have pain, but it's just because they've gotten used to it. They have a fuck ton of pain. They've just grown accustomed to that pain. Okay, so that is the biggest trap, and they're the type of people that will give juxtapositions and rationalizations, which we'll go into later. But that's the type of person who says, yeah, like, you know, I'm consistent, I just kind of need to dial it all in. That would suggest you're not consistent, is what you wish you could say immediately on the sales call, right? So it's like, we got to ask questions around those things. What do you feel like you need to dial in? And you said you're consistent. What are the areas that you're consistent in, and what are the areas that are needing to be dialed in so you can actually achieve your goals? We don't just take what they say at face value. And this is the difference between having a present conversation and a non-present conversation, okay? There's active listening. Someone says something to you and you process it. You're like, based on the things I know about them so far, does that actually make sense? If someone says, I'm consistent, I just need to dial it in, if you actually think about that sentence, you're like, that doesn't actually make sense. I'm going to ask some more questions about it. But most people aren't actively listening. They're passively listening. And they're just sat there, and the person will say, yeah, I'm consistent. I just need to dial it in. And the closer's like, okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep, you just need to dial it in. Okay, cool. And, you know, what do you want our help with? It's a fucking, like, brainless schmucks, okay? So that is the biggest goal here, right? And these people will say all of this type of shit. Hey, look, yeah, I mean, I kind of know what I need to do. I just haven't done it yet. That's not possible, right? And then it's also like the rationalizations of like, you know, it is fairly urgent, but I just need to wait until I'm back from this trip and then I'll do it. But they've already been thinking about this for 6 months. But right now it's the trip. After that, it will be the next trip. After that, it will be the blind dating competition that they're going on. There's always going to be something in their life that will stop them from having this, okay? All of this shit, okay? Our job isn't to necessarily challenge it. It is to quietly expose the contradiction. Okay, we go into all of those different things. So it's like, you know, help me understand, if you've known that this was a priority for 18 months, what's actually been stopping you from getting this going, right? Or it's like, well, you mentioned there that you feel like there's a ton of opportunity in this space. Why do you feel like you haven't been able to act on that opportunity so far, right? And then again, it's like the why now questions, all those kind of things, but we're taking it, right? And then I've given this example countless times, right? This is just the famous one because it's such a glaringly obvious rationalization and juxtaposition that was missed. The person who they said in their nutrition, they're a novice expert. They can't be a novice in something and an expert in something. It doesn't exist. So we need to understand What are these areas and what are these areas? We have to separate them, okay? So that is number 2. And we're going to go deep into the types of questions and all of that stuff, okay? But first, it's so important to identify who am I actually speaking to. So those are, depending what offer you're on, that's going to be the majority of your leads, okay? Now, I am running a team right now that sells very high ticket packages, like all the way up to like 100K. The average price point of it is probably around 20K. It's all kind of customizable. When I was selling Iman's 18K product, it was a similar type of client and archetype. And what this one is the good to great. Now, these are rare. And the thing that I want to make so clear, just because someone's saying things are great doesn't mean they're in this positioning. They could, and they're more likely to be in this one. Right? And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that in just a second, okay? But this is the person who, in my eyes, needs to be doing at least 100K a month plus. Otherwise, they don't really warrant for it. And they're genuinely in a pretty good place. Things have been moving in their business. You know, they've been growing. They know that they could be growing a bit faster or whatever it might be, and that's why they're jumping on a call. And they're very self-aware. Why is this so important to be aware of in this type of prospect? Because most closers will try to fabricate the pain. Well, hey, obviously you're making 100 grand a month. Why do you even need to make 200 grand a month? I don't know. I guess, it's just, I just want to make more money. Okay, cool. Well, what would even change in your life if you made another 100 grand? And then they're like, honestly, nothing really. Okay, so why even bother? Like, it's like, you're so desperate to get pain from them. That's not the way that you do it. With this type of person, you can literally say things like, cool, man. Well, obviously things are going pretty good, right? You're doing 100K a month and that type of stuff. You seem like a smart business owner, so I'm sure you've got some really great self-awareness. When it comes to your business right now, what would you say are some of those areas that aren't quite as optimized as they could be, which is going to be what you would be looking for mine and Aman's help on, so that you can scale that business to the next level, right? It's that type of thing, all right? Taking that, cool. Well, it sounds like you're doing really good already. We're in the business of taking people from good to great. So help me understand, in your business right now, what are some of the optimizations that you think we could come in and do that will take your business from good to great, right? What are some of the bottlenecks in your business, right? Because you've got the kind of, hey, what's the biggest challenge question? For me, with this type of prospect, I prefer to contextualize it a little bit. Hey, you've got this, and this going on. You're a smart business owner. What would you say are some of those areas that you would be looking to fine tune so that your business can continue to grow? What are some of the areas that aren't working as well as they potentially could be? What are some of the bottlenecks in the business? Because this person is smart and aware, and they've probably got maybe 3 things. And we want to deep dive into all those 3 things because they're aware that, let's say each one of these things produces a 2 to 5% increase on their income. That's a shit ton of fucking money. And they've got the foundations in place. Everything is good, right? They're making 100 grand a month, but they know if they got their funnel optimized, right? If their marketing was better, whatever, okay? So like your goal here is to get specificity on some of the things that they feel like could be better. And then you do a massive, massive consulting vibe, deep dive into those things. So if someone said the funnel, we're going to go so deep into the funnel. Okay, when did you make that funnel? Who made it, right? How many visitors is that getting every single day? How many leads is that bringing in? How many conversions do you have, right? What have you tried to improve that funnel in the past? Do you feel like it could be improved? In your eyes, what do you feel like is not quite, as good on it that would need focusing? And we're just going to deep dive into it, right? We're going to take all of these numbers that they give. We're going to convert them into percentages. We're going to understand if there's drop off on any of the months. Like we're going to go so deep into these 3 problems because that's where the sale is made. And they know that if these things really get locked in, that would be like a 300K a month, increase. So we get like a 3x increase. Okay. So that's the way that I sold like the 18K product. That's the way that we would sell the kind of this other team that I'm running right now. Now, what I was saying here, okay, we had a call with someone who was making 15K a month, somewhere thereabouts, 15, 16K a month. They've been running it for 3 years, okay? Each client is somewhere between 6 and 10K, so that basically means, yep, they're signing, 1 or 2 clients per month, right? But like then they must be churning, or I don't even know because we didn't ask those questions because we kind of bought into the narrative because this person started talking about all the things that were good in their business. Oh, we got great service delivery and we're really present on LinkedIn and I've got loads of connections on LinkedIn. I've got like 10,000 connections on LinkedIn and every time I do a LinkedIn post, I get like 7,000 views on it. And it was all this, hey, we're great. But all we needed to say was, okay, cool. So you got 7,000 views on your last LinkedIn post. How many clients did you sign from that post? 0. Okay, no worries. Well, how many leads did you get from that post? 0. Huh, okay. Well, how about for last month? How many posts did you do on LinkedIn? Oh, we done 30 posts. Okay, so you've done a post a day. Nice. How many clients did you sign from those 30 posts? 0. You see how it's like they're going to say it as if it's good, but it was this. It was the rationalizing little rat, okay? And this is so important. Is like, again, it's the present conversation, active listening. Are they actually doing good? Or are they just acting that things are okay? Because they're very different, right? You know when you actually speak to a business owner and they've got their shit on lock and they're genuinely doing very, very good. But that's a very specific type of offer at a very high price point as well. 15K plus probably, like minimum. So unless you're on that type of offer, I would say prospect number 3 isn't probably even relevant for you. You are just going to need to expose their rationalizations, because you will definitely get people who say, no, well, you know, things aren't that bad. Things are pretty good, man. I just want to see what the next level could be like. Hey, just tell me your price. They're rationalizing. Okay. So those are the 3 types of people. Let's move into the actual now framework. Okay. So once from here, we are going to understand what their challenge is. Okay. You have a problem-focused conversation, right? I've already said this in one of the previous trainings, so I'm not going to go deep into it. But yes, you want to ask what the biggest challenge is, or biggest bottleneck is, or what's the biggest reason that you want to start an e-com store right now, or any of those types of things, okay? Problem-aware conversation. So once we actually have that pain point, once we have that challenge, okay, we then want to go into past problems, right? What is the trail of evidence left behind? Now, before we dive into this, this is just an add-on point for the entire discovery that will change your discovery results massively. And I've coached so many people, and still most people don't fucking do this properly, okay? It is taking their exact language and mirroring it back to them. No one fucking does this at the level that is required, despite how many core reviews I do, okay? When you mirror their exact words, you are literally basically in their head, right? When you paraphrase it, it's just that it's almost like you're trying to interpret what they said, right? Like you're like on the outside, okay? One will create a fuck ton of trust. The other will create almost like a subtle disconnect. So if someone was to use the word bandwidth, I'm going to use that in a summary, but I also might use a couple questions using that word as well, right? So let's say they were talking about how they don't have enough bandwidth to do the marketing themselves, and they'd probably give a bunch of stuff, right? Obviously, you ask a question, and a lot of the time they kind of give you a decent chunk of information. But just to keep it short, I would be like, okay, cool. So currently you don't have the bandwidth that would be required to actually focus on the marketing. Yes, Scott, that's correct. And then they'll normally give you even more information. And then I would say, I'm not saying this is like the best next question, but in the sense of what we're talking about here, where we're using their exact language, we could say, okay, that makes sense. Where is your bandwidth mostly being used right now in the business? They're going to feel this resonance in the fact that you are talking their fucking language. And they're not thinking to themselves, that's weird. He's also using the word bandwidth. As long as you don't make it feel weird, you just ask the question, okay, where is your bandwidth kind of going into at the moment? They will feel like they're having a truly aligned conversation with you, okay? So if nothing else from this video, if you take this away, I'll circle this, I will highlight this, I'll do everything, okay, to try and hammer in this point. I do it all the time and people still don't do it when I review calls properly. This will change the game for you, okay? So past problems, past attempts, right? This is where obviously we're looking for the things that they've tried, but more than that, at a deeper level, we are also listening to the story that they have been telling themselves and others about why it hasn't worked, right? And we're paying very close attention to that. Did they externally blame kind of circumstances or even other people or the government or, certain things, right? Beginning like, seasons like, oh, back in 2020, we had this big thing, right? It's like, are they blaming all of that type of shit, or are they taking accountability and ownership? Most of the time it is unfortunately the blaming game, okay? So the biggest thing here is like, well, if they're blaming shit, are they going to continue to do those things? And we need to curiously ask why they feel like those things that they're blaming are like kind of held them back in the first place, right? And we should also be developing pattern recognition as time goes on, where we're kind of like, I've seen this type of thing before, right? Because humans are predictable, right? So we want to be understanding at a deep, deep level a few things when it comes to what they've tried in the past. Now, I want to just be very clear here, okay? When you're asking questions around this stuff, we want to just continue to ask questions until it, because if we know something's absurd, if someone says, hey, a program is a scam, I'm not going to say, well, that's stupid. Why don't you think like there could be good programs out there? I'm just going to say, okay, why do you feel like it was a scam? Okay, how long ago did you work with them? Gotcha. Okay, I guess what was it that made you sign up with them? And then obviously you found out later they were a scam. What was it initially that stood out to them? Okay, did you do much research on them and things? Was there anyone in that program that did have results even though you didn't? Okay, interesting. What do you think they done differently? Gotcha. And what kind of learning lessons did you take away from that experience? Cool, yeah, because now it seems like you're a lot more equipped to make a decision because you've gone through that bad experience, so you have a better reference point towards what you would actually want. What would those things be now? Like, what are the key metrics that you'd be looking for when you look at a new potential partnership? Right? I'm not moving past the word scam until we have overcome the whole fucking thing, okay? So, the things that we want to be basically understanding, and this is just kind of almost like at a bullet point level, and then you would dive deeper on all these things. How long has this been a problem? What have they tried to try and solve it? Why do you think that thing didn't work? What was missing from that approach? And then, like I said, what lessons? That's kind of my formula to understand the past attempts. Now, again, you're diving deep into all of those things, okay? So like I said, this is kind of like a framework for you to have, because this is basically how I run a sales call in my brain. And then if you want to script out your own word tracks and stuff, I mean, be my guest. But the whole goal of a scriptless conversation is that you are able to relate it to them. It's human, it's contextual to the conversation, but this will give you some guardrails to work through, okay? So you understand all of these things, and obviously you want to keep digging deep. So like, what do you feel like was missing? Oh, okay, and did anyone else have results with those things? Right? And it's like, oh, what led you? And we're just unpacking extra things, okay? So we keep going through all of those, because if someone's tried a bunch of things, we need all of the clarity as to why it didn't work, and then we also need commitment as to why they're still willing to keep pushing despite those bad experiences. Someone who's tried nothing, different ballgame. Why have they tried nothing? And I mean like specifically why, right? Have they been in research mode? Where has that gotten them so far? Because let's say someone wants to get into YouTube automation, and I would say, okay, how long have you sort of thought about getting into YouTube automation for? Okay, 6 months. And in the last 6 months, what have you been doing or looking into to get into this? I've just been researching. Oh, okay, understood. I guess on an average week, how much research are you typically doing? I don't know, probably like 7 hours. So like 7 hours a week. Okay, understood. 7 times 4 times, so for the month, times by 6 for the total number of months, or equals the number of hours. I'm not going to do the maths right now, but I'll just throw a fucking random number. Let's just say it's like 250 hours. All of a sudden, we now have leverage. So for the last 6 months, you've been researching. If we had to ballpark it, it's been somewhere in the realm of 200 to 300 hours. Where are you at with YouTube automation? What have you actually set up? Nothing. Okay. Why do you feel like with that amount of hours, you haven't been able to execute on anything yet? What do you feel like has been missing for you to actually get started with this? Are you planning to continue doing another 250 hours into research, or are you now more focused in implementation? Okay, what shifted? Do you feel like if you put 250 hours into the actual building of this business, do you think you'd be in a position where you may have already made some money? Cool. How much longer do you want to continue to do research instead of actually putting the time and energy into something to build and make money instead? Right? It's like, we're going to understand all of that shit, okay? That is really the biggest goal. And of course, this is really layering into what we were talking about with like rationalizations, right? The research and all of that type of stuff, okay? Because this will uncover their decision-making process and patterns, their now level of commitment, whether they take ownership or whether they're just externalizing blame, but also hidden limiting beliefs, right? Around success or trust or self-worth, right? Because when we go through this stuff, are they describing things as a scam? Are they describing you as like, oh, I don't know, you guys, like, I didn't really like your pre-call messaging. I felt like it was a little spammy. Like, oh, all of a sudden we need to have a conversation around that because they won't buy otherwise, right? So this is where we get an understanding of the lens of perspective that they have towards all of these things, okay? So we're going deep right now, okay? Now, next thing, this is a very unique one to me. I call it first contact. Now, what I mean with this, and I think I briefly mentioned this on a couple calls before, potentially, We can notice if we're truly tuned in the first moment that they tap on something that is the truth. The first moment they touch something that's real. Some kind of regret, a fear, a mistake, just a buried pain, right? Like in fitness, some kind of bad blood work, and then they'll be like, yeah, I had some blood tests like a while back, but the results were, but like honestly, like since then I've just been doing triathlons, and we need to go on to the blood work. We need to have such a deep conversation around the blood work. There's pain in there. That is the moment of truth, right? Same thing with someone who's been trying to make content. They're like, yeah, I think ages ago I kind of tried to get up a YouTube channel. I don't know. I don't really know what happened with it. But like now I've just been thinking it's so much easier to do ads and blah, 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 blah. They had a terrible experience with content. It failed. They felt fucking, like they didn't know what they were doing. People were mocking them for it. I don't know, something, okay? People will tap on the truth. Same thing with like someone who says, yeah, I want to get fitter because I just want to look better at the beach. And then they kind of say like, yeah, and kind of my wife's also been thinking about getting into this as well and blah, 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 blah. And it's like the actual thing, the actual shifting moment, the actual necessity to improve your fitness came from a conversation that you've had with your wife, and who knows what that conversation was. Maybe she's not happy with your appearance. Maybe you're not happy with her appearance. There's something that's more deep rooted, and that's the first moment of the truth. And when you can feel that at an energetic level, because they almost tap on it and come away from it, that's the thing that you tap into, because that is the gateway to the sale, okay? So this is a very unique one to me, but I always noticed that. I was like, oh, they just said something. That was a bit of the truth, and then they pulled away, because we don't want to admit our wrongdoings. We don't want to be like, yeah, I actually done this thing and my life's fucked up, but let's have a conversation about how fucked up my life is. They're gonna be like if people talk enough, eventually they slip up. I think isn't it called like a Freudian slip, right? So it's like if someone is like talking for 2 minutes, somewhere in those 2 minutes they're gonna tell you a pain point. It's your goal to seek that out like a heat-seeking fucking missile, okay? So that is first contact. Next one is around objection prevention, okay? Spotting the invisible barriers that will stop the sale, okay? Your goal as a closer should be looking what could stop this sale from happening, okay? This is about identifying patterns and things, okay? So the goal isn't necessarily to overcome it, it's to reveal the architecture of them and how they would delay their responses before it is allowed to happen, right? So if what we'll find is that the objection or the concern, it shows up after the pitch. And what I mean, you do the pitch, you've price dropped here, and then the concern comes up here, right? So this shouldn't say concern here, it should actually say pitch. So we pitch, we price drop, and then the concern comes up. At this stage, you're fucked. It's too late. You've shown your cards. They know that anything you say to them now is just to gain money. Of course, you will still be able to objection handle some people, but you would be able to close a lot more people if you were objection preventing, so that these concerns are like, hey, we already discussed this. It's almost like we were on the same side of the table. We had this discussion. Now you're just at the hurdle and I'm going to help you jump over it. It's different, okay? So this is really, and you'll find this a lot, we want to be during the discovery, okay, which is where the objection prevention will happen. We want them realizing on their own what has been keeping them kind of in a holding pattern. So then that way, when we present the offer, the only thing that they have really is just like, I have to do this. Okay, so these will be the types of things where they will label, cycles or periods of inaction as like, I've just been being cautious, right? Or like they're trying to self-soothe themselves, where it's like, yeah, like, I know what to do. I just need to actually go out and do it. Or this conditional stuff, right? So it's like being conditionally ready. Right? So it's like, oh, once I do this or once I finish this, then I'll commit. Or we have decision makers. So it's like spouses, parents, and business partners. But to go one level deeper, what most people don't think about is it might not even be that they're the ones calling the shots. It may also be how that person views them, right? How that view of those people, how the view of those people may influence that decision. Okay. And then another one would be like almost the subtle unworthiness. Like, hey, yeah, like I do want to do this type of thing. I need to get a little bit more consistent myself first, okay? And all of those types of things. So I'm going to give you a few kind of like written out little examples from some core reviews that I've done, right? So one person said, yeah, I'm pretty impressed by brand owner name, and it's for like fitness coaching. It's like, and I don't get impressed easily, but I don't know if I need a coach. And as we go deeper into it, he's talking about all the things that aren't really working as well as they could have been, right? So we have to reflect the absurdity of what he's saying. So it sounds like you've been researching this stuff for years. And I mean, you're a smart dude, but yet this one area is still inconsistent for you. What part of you believes that more information is actually going to change this pattern? Right? Because he's like, yeah, I don't think I need a coach. I just need like the information. So you got to like break that absurdity. Okay? And it's all of those types of things, right? And it's also like when they tell you the trip, the first thing you want to do is like pull away from it. Okay, well, I mean, you've got these couple of trips coming up. Just curious, why not just wait until you're back from those? Most of the time, they'll tell you, no, I don't want to do that because I've been putting it off long enough because you were the one that pulled away. But if they did say, I mean, I guess I could, just tell it. You'd literally just be like, yeah, I mean, you could. Don't you think, though, that you've maybe been putting this type of thing off for a very long time already? When are you going to draw a line in the sand and say, hey, this is actually important enough for me to make a priority? Would you agree that if something's important enough, you'll find a way to make it happen? Given that this has been something on your mind for 6 months, when is that moment going to happen? Right? And we're coming into it and we're challenging it, okay? And we're preventing those objections, okay? And then with all of this, it's not just about how long they've wanted this outcome. It's also about how long they've kind of known that something was off, but they've chosen to live with it anyway. And we're looking to expose that pattern, okay? And a lot of the questions you'll ask is like, when did this first become important to you? How long have you been thinking about solving this? What do you think has stopped you from actually moving on it sooner, right? All of these types of things. We're just unmasking that tolerance threshold, right? How long have they been tolerating the discomfort and telling themselves that it was fine, okay? So all of these different types of objections that may pop up, I'm dealing with it there and then. If someone says some bullshit about, I'm looking after my mum, I'm going to have a conversation around that and why they feel like they need to do this regardless of it. It's like, well, you're looking after your mum right now. Sounds like that's a lot going on. Why would you look into a business model like this despite that? Do you feel like now is the right time? You're going to pull away. You're going to prevent the objection first. You're going to get them to sell to you. Okay? That is really the biggest goal. So I'm looking like, what could stop this sale? Anything that they say, hey, this thing's coming up. Or I don't know, I'm kind of a little bit like, I don't have much, confidence in this area. Any bullshit like that, I'm going to have a conversation around it. Right? So if they're like, hey, yeah, I just don't know if I'm really confident enough to do content. Okay, well, how do you feel like you're going to be able to ensure that that lack of confidence doesn't hold you back from your goals? Well, I guess, I need to just push through it. Well, you don't have to. You could just not do anything. No, that's not an option. We got to come from that energy field, okay? So then after that is where we get to the shifting point. Why now? Okay? No one wakes up out of bed and says, hey, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go and start my own business, right? Like just out of the blue. It wasn't even a thought in their head before, okay? It doesn't happen, okay? So once we've kind of drawn out all of these things and we've prevented objections, now is the time to ask this. People jump the gun on this question. People are like, okay, well, yeah, like someone will say, hey, I want to lose weight. Okay, cool. Well, what changed recently so that you wanted to lose weight? Boom. They're going to say, I don't know. I just want to look a little bit better. Compared to, okay, cool. So you've had a conversation with your wife. You're both not happy with each other's appearance. This has been something on the go for a year. You've tried a program, 3 years ago. You didn't have the best results with it, but ultimately you know that you still need that coaching and accountability. What shifted recently for you to now decide, hey, this is the type of thing that I need? I guarantee you they will give you a 10 times more powerful answer because we have the context and we can preload that context into the question as we ask it. That is what is so important. You can't just ask this question willy-nilly, like super early on. It's actually going to fuck things up. Compared to here, boom, we've got so much data, we've got so much context, we understand all of these things. There's leaks in their business, they're losing lead flow, right? Inconsistent leads, revenues dropping, whatever, right? Their weight is bad, whatever the fuck it is, whatever the pain points are, we get clarity on it, and then it's like, okay, so boom, I'm aware of all those things. So why is it a priority for you now to solve those things? Or what shifted recently as to why you now want to solve that? Right? Or help me understand, was there something specific that happened recently, or was this more of like a stack of events that led to this moment where you now feel like you need to change? Like any of these kind of questions, we have to get the answer out of it, okay? We have to understand, because this is really the natural pivot, right? And this is one of our biggest leverage points, okay? We need to not destroy that, though. It's like one of our strongest leverage points, but we have to let it emerge naturally, okay? Because we've got a stack of reasons now, and then we ask it. So powerful, right? It's like, you know, out of curiosity, what was it that made this a priority for you now? Like, was there something that shifted recently, right? You mentioned that this has been on your mind for a while. What's led to that decision to finally kind of take a step towards this today? Bum, 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 all of this stuff, okay? Because this lets the prospect relive that moment. They relive that snapping moment where they're like, yeah, this thing kind of happened recently. And if you get the answer where they're like, nothing specific, okay, well, you know, I can understand that, but I guess given that this has been sort of in the mind for the last 2 years, I'm guessing you didn't just spring out of bed one day and like, you're like, now's the day. Was there something that kind of just changed your perspective recently, or help me understand? The best sales reps have the ability to re-ask the same question in a different way to make sure that they get the answer for what they're looking for. If I review calls from new closers, they ask a question, they don't get the answer they're looking for, they get uncomfortable, they move the fuck on. Terrible closer. If you're like, hey, I didn't get the answer I'm looking for, I'm going to fucking ask it again. And if I still don't get the answer I'm looking for, I'm going to ask it again, but I'm going to say, hey, I don't know if it's me, maybe I'm not wording it correctly, but like, I'm just not understanding this thing. And I think it's really important for me to understand. When you said X, blah, 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 right? And you just go into it and you ask 3 times if needed, okay? So this is the biggest goal with it. We want them to relive that moment. We want them to understand what it was that was the snapping point that's basically brought them to this call today, because when they relive that moment, they will reconnect with the urgency, okay? And that's where we create pressure in layers, okay? So that is the biggest thing, and that section matters is because they often won't change because things are bad. They will change because they've realized that they've been tolerating bad for too long, okay? So we're showing them that they need to act now, and that, to be honest, they should have acted fucking years ago. And it's just going to continue to cost them if they don't get onto this, okay? And that leads us into opportunity cost. As I said, this is a very in-depth way that I am doing this. That is the worst handwriting on earth, okay? But opportunity cost, right? We want to reframe inaction as the true risk, basically, okay? A terrible sales rep will sell the dream. Well, you know, what's going to change in your life? Compared to a strong, actual, good closer will sell that cost of delaying, okay? Someone above that level, to be honest with you, gets the prospect to tell them that themselves, though. Okay, so we want to one of the most powerful ways is to quantify things. Okay, so we want to almost corner them with this logic and with this maths, right? So let's say they're running a funnel and the conversion of it is 12%, for example, right? And they're bringing in like 15K a month. Okay, we'll do some maths, right? We want to basically ask to them, okay, so you've told me that, you know, these are the things that are not good in your funnel. When those things are resolved, where do you feel like that percentage could be at? Right? They're going to say 20%, for example. Okay, so what's that actually going to do to your bottom line? And then we would say, okay, so 12% to 20%, that's actually like a 77% uplift. So let me understand. That's with 0 increase in ad spend. That's somewhere around kind of 6-7K a month just in missed cash flow right now by not having those things dialed in. Yeah, I guess so. Cool. So 7,000 times by 12. Right, I'll actually do the maths for this one on my little calculator, right? Someone's going to say, oh, that maths is so easy, but bro, I don't need to use my brain for maths. I use it for a million other things. So it'd be like, okay, cool. So when we get these things on your funnel fixed, we're solving an $84,000 problem. Why is this important? This is opportunity cost through price anchoring. Run the maths, understand what has been at cost. They've been losing this. So the best way to do it, to be honest, is not even just that we're solving an $84,000 problem, but it would also be saying, hey, well, you've had this funnel for the last year, so you've actually missed out on $84,000 by not getting those things fixed. Do you want to have an additional $84,000 this year? Yes, I do. Okay, well, weird, right? It's all of those types of things, okay? And then again, there was one call that I done that was basically someone saying they've kind of had like this little coaching thing and it had been like 3 years, right? But they were like, I've just been helping a couple friends, right? So they were like, yeah, you know, but I did charge them. I charged them 2.5K. I've helped 6 people so far, right? The person said that he could handle 5 at a time. Okay, he said he could handle 5 people at a month. So what we then do is the biggest way to sell is to get them to look at things in areas of their life they've never even fucking thought about, right? So we would say, okay, so you could have handled 5 people per month in those last 3 years. That's 174 people that you were not able to help. And in terms of dollars, that's $435,000 that you didn't tap into. Have you ever taken a moment to think about that? No. How, hearing that number, how does that sit with you? Done, right? It's like, holy shit. And then you could always then divide that, right? Because that's like across 3 years. You could put that into a 1 year number and it'd be like, cool. So like, if we do get this up and running next year, you should expect to pull in X amount of money. Is that something you want to do? Cool. Why now? Right, we're going to double down on it. We're just going to keep going, okay? So this is how we're going to create opportunity cost, right? Now, other things that we want to do, we can then kind of take all of this and opportunity cost question it up. So it's like, okay, so knowing that you aren't having the impact that you know you could have, you've been continuing to work a job that you don't enjoy, and just the rate of your income growth isn't even higher than the rise of living costs. Would you say this is actually important for you to solve? Yes, it is. Well, I mean, you could just wait another 6 months like you already have before. No, I don't want to do that. What do you stand to lose if you don't move forward? Boom. I'm creating opportunity cost. I'm not asking, what happens if this doesn't change in 6 months? That's gay. That's fucking lame as shit, okay? I'm saying, what do you stand to lose? That's human. That's better. That's like, take the principles of some of these sales scripts and then understand that they have been pushed through the meat grinder 17 million times, and then change them if you've got a brain and you're not like a fucking one of those little monkeys with like 2 symbols, right? Okay, the last couple of things, okay? Like I said, this is a deep framework where I think you can all understand where my brain's going and how I'm able to get some really strong and good commitment on a call, and how this is a method that I have created. This didn't come from someone. Maybe some bits and pieces have been very inspired by different mentors and shit, but in general, this is my shit. This isn't current state, future state, opportunity cost, or cost of inaction, or whatever, right? Okay, so next point. We've touched on this a little bit, but it is very important. Juxtapositions and rationalizations. Okay? This is like realistically one of my signature moves, right? If you watch one of my core reviews or see us all the time, we listen for where their words are contradicting each other, where their beliefs don't line up, where they're just kind of deluding themselves, to be honest, right? The whole, I'm a novice expert in nutrition. Okay, what specifically are you a novice in? And what would you say you're an expert in? Right? I know I need to change, I just don't have the time. Okay. Do you feel like there's a cost towards just doing nothing? Right? It's like, oh, I want to grow, but I'm just not sure I don't know if I'm ready yet. Okay. Do you feel like if you're not ready now, I guess what exactly would actually make you feel ready later? Right? You said there's a lot of misinformation out there. Why do you feel like you've allowed that to continue spreading whilst you've stayed silent, right? Was an example of a core review that I done, right? Then it was like on that same core review, because they wanted to, it was like around posting content. Okay, so you said that you've wanted to talk about these subjects. How much content have you posted in the last 30 days? 0. So it's fucking rationalizing then. Oh, this topic is so important to me. I know I need to share this message to the world. Okay, so you've got this important message you want to share to the world. How many pieces of content have you posted in the last 30 days? None. Done. Oh, I've got an amazing following on LinkedIn. Okay, cool. Out of those 10,000 followers, how many leads did you get last month? None. Rationalization, rationalization, rationalization. Right? It's like you got to spot them. You got to break them. They're all bullshit. Right? And that's the reason that they're not having the transformation and the growth that they want, because they are telling people those things. It's the same as the person who is going around saying, yeah, like, you know, I started an agency and I'm making like 20 grand a month. And then like you fucking look and they've got like 1 client and it's like 2K, but they're just a loser. But they just want to feel like they're going somewhere. Or even just that person, we all know them, like, who isn't entrepreneurial, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to start my business, or I started my business and things are crazy and I'm so busy right now, and they've got nothing coming through the door. Like, they're not doing anything, right? So like, you got to break the rationalizations, because that's the goal. Like, to go off on a slight side tangent, all of these things, I'm coming at it from a very intense angle. I'm like, hey, do this, break them apart. It is all in the greater name of serving them. right? I will gladly destroy someone's rationalizations if I know that on the other side of that rationalization, there is a transformation for them to actually become someone that they want to be and someone that they have the potential to be. Like, if I can get someone to tap into their true higher power, that is the greatest feeling in the world. And if I have to sacrifice being comfortable, then I will gladly do that, right? I'm okay with being uncomfortable on a call if I know it's for the greater good. And I'll actually tell them that. I'll actually, because in my opinion, that's the best way to objection handle, to tell them the truth. Hey, obviously I know I'm being kind of hard on you. Can I be honest with you? I'm a little uncomfortable myself. Do you know why I'm still willing to say these things to you despite that uncomfort? Because I actually want to see you succeed. That's not some type of fucking script or word track that you get. That's like just speaking from the heart, okay? So this is the biggest goal on these rationalizations, and the biggest thing that I want you to do here, because it's almost hard to articulate and to portray without just showing live examples, and I have done that on some of like the 3 core reviews videos that I posted and any core reviews that you see, but take a look through your calls. Look back through your calls and look at moments where they say something, but you feel like, I don't think that's true. Like someone who's like, yeah, no, I'm living a great life, man. Like everything's amazing. And then they're like making like $2,000 a month. You're like, you've just grown to tolerate it. That doesn't mean it's actually good, okay? And then the very last thing that we go in for, this is the ultimate kind of closing of the discovery, is the hidden cost of delaying. Okay, so this is where we basically Mike Tyson punch them away at the end, okay? So this is where we ask basically heavy hitting reframes at the end, okay? So all of those types of things where it's like, you know, how much longer do you want to rob people of the help that only you are able to provide, right? That person who talked about the coaching, he talked about how he can like transform men's lives with their confidence, all of those things. So it's like, how much longer do you want to continue to rob those men of the help that only you are able to give? How much longer are you willing to keep trading your energy for a job that is not fulfilling, it's not growing your income, and you know that it's not your end game just because it's been familiar, right? All of these types of things. Why do you feel that you've continued to justify putting this off, knowing that this is basically your legacy, right? How much longer are you going to continue doing that? I'm not going to anymore. Boom, 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 boom. It's the how much longer and why have you continued questions. These are so powerful. We get all of that context, and it's like, how much longer are you going to do this thing, right? And why have you continued to do those things, okay? The why have you continued can often be used as a pre-frame to this question, right? So, for example, when I was consulting for an agency, I was training one of the closers on there. He had like a somewhat lower close rate, and we started to really boost that up. And I remember reviewing a call, and he asked this question, and it came out of the blue, and it felt so fucking satisfying to hear. He said like, hey, John, can I just be honest with you for a second? Yeah, what's up? Given that this current company you're working with has gotten you 0 results in the last 3 months, why have you continued to work with them? And he literally was like, you know, yeah, I don't know, man, you're right, like this. And then he just said, so how much longer are you planning to just throw money down the toilet by working with them? No longer. Okay. Are you open to seeing how someone could do it better though? Yes. Amazing. Fucking demolished, okay? So that is my discovery framework. Very unique. You'll notice that we didn't go too much into like the future state, right? You can get these things to understand their goals and stuff, but if you've done all of these things here, you will get the sale, okay? You will get the sale. So, hopefully this was helpful. Like I said, this is the very first time that I've basically reverse engineered, like almost like a mental framework that I go through when I'm doing these calls, okay? And some things, dependent on the call, you'll be focusing on a little bit more. So for example, the shifting point might be really severe for someone else, or the level of past things they've tried might be massive for this person. They got scammed 4 fucking times. Scammed, right? I would say it like that, right? And so then you know, okay, that's the area you're going to hyper focus into a little bit more. But in general, this is the way that I go through my sales calls. I appreciate every single person. I think I mentioned this before, put a little vision board that by the end of July, I would have 750 subs. I haven't actually really kind of said like, hey guys, subscribe on these videos because it's not really my style. But if you haven't, Please feel free to make my dreams come true on my vision board. Share this with your mama, with your grandma, with your granddad. Appreciate you all. This was a long video, but I hope it was beneficial. How long was this video? Maybe close to an hour. Wowza. Peace and love. Catch you soon. Goodbye.